Starting a little bit early today. We have got a few people joining us early, so we figured we'd start and we'll just have a chat until the time that we're supposed to kick off. And we'll just warm up the room, right? I'm the opening act and the main main event. So today we're talking about how do you right size your paid media budget for B2B. And you know what? This is such a timely topic because so many more people are doing paid media. Amazon's pushing out video ads, Netflix pushing out video ads. A lot of platforms that used to not have ads have introduced ad capabilities, and so as a result, a lot of advertisers are like, oh, okay, I have so many more options, to reach my audience, and they're exploring a lot of things. Also, recently in the last week or two, LinkedIn's like, come out as a video first, social network. And if you guys hadn't paid attention, you should read the blog from the chief marketing officer that they're actually going a little bit beyond just professional interactions. Now, that might be to some of you guys' chagrin, others might welcome it. I think certainly the world of social media continues to evolve and adapt. And, LinkedIn being one of the big ones, but not necessarily growing as fast. I think they're trying to evolve so they can grow faster and engage in more opportunities. I'm sure they'll find a relevant, appropriate way to do so, so it continues to be a place of, professional, engagement, and not full of, things that you can sometimes find in social media. But nonetheless, all these things converge into a scenario where you're like, you know what, I got a couple of dollars, let me do some paid ads. The other thing is a lot of these ad platforms are kind of easy to use, whether it's LinkedIn ads or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. It's kind of plug and play, right? You can be a little keyboard warrior and do some magic on a lot of these ad networks, and it doesn't take a PhD in tactical marketing to move the needle. So you might be thinking, well, hey, I want to go dive in and I want to go reach my, IT decision makers, or people who are going to buy accounting services, or legal, or someone who needs restaurant equipment, or you name it, right? You're trying to sell to businesses versus selling, supplements, lifestyle, fashion, you name it, for to consumers. That's a whole different kind of engagement. So what we're talking about is paid media to reach business professionals to make business decisions. And so today we're going to talk about how do you right size your budget. Now, I'm going to flavor my conversation today really more about a smaller advertiser, though I could talk a lot about, right sizing your budget if you've got, millions of dollars to spend every month. And there are, some of those huge advertisers out there, and I've worked with a lot of them, who are spending loads of money, cross network, cross platform. They've got all the tools, all the audiences, they've integrated everything, they've got whole teams, and they've got a really amazing approach. But I think really where the rubber meets the road in terms of where you got to scratch your head is not when you have abundance and you have so much money that you can try a lot of different things and, get into the metrics and see which performs better and A/B test and, use AI to do a bunch of stuff to make it, as exciting and impactful and, really optimize your rate of conversion. That's a different beast and a different set of activities. But really where it becomes interesting is when you have $500, right? A month, let's say you got $500 for the month, to try and move the needle, and you target business people. That's when it starts to get interesting. And you really got to be resourceful, creative, make sure you're really well targeted, very relevant, so that you could, drive the right interactions with the right people and use that to amplify other things that you're doing. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. We're starting off a teensy little bit early because people must be early. It's the summer heat, y'all. I'm an old lady, and I'm going through the changes. So I used to not be heat sensitive. I was actually the opposite. I was the chick who in the summer would be wearing a sweater, indoors and stuff. And I would keep wearing my little sweater outside too. But now it's like I'm so hot all the time that I don't even want you to touch me. So, But today we're going to talk about paid media for B2B and if you've got the right size of budget. And we got about 5 minutes before we're officially going to kick off. We've got some people coming in, so I do my little spiel, grab a drink, pick your seat, get comfortable, get situated. If you're in the live stream on LinkedIn, hey guys, you might be seeing the beginnings of our discussion today. Join us. Come on, join us in. If you want to be in the live audience, so to speak, and go beyond the live stream and interact with us, ask questions, that kind of stuff, then pop over to change3e.com and hit our events page. And you can still register if we've closed registration, because sometimes we close the registration before the event starts. Just hit my team on the chat. Somebody's going to be on chat. Sandy, make sure somebody's on chat. Somebody will be on chat and they'll send you the link so you can join in. You do have to use a business email and use your first and last name, because we don't allow no spammers, or what's the word, trolls, right? So you got to use your details. But come on in. We'd love to have you. It's going to be a great conversation. Now, last year I did no slides. It was all just very free form conversation flow, and people love that, and that was great. But this year I have just a little bit of data, because my theme for 2025 is data-driven decisions. So what does that mean? And are you making data-driven decisions? I know, I'm sorry for pointing at you. Are you making data-driven decisions is the question. It's so easy, and especially living in the world of social media, where you get so many things thrown at you as if it's a fact and it's actually an opinion. And opinions are great. They're like bungholes. Everybody has one, and it's awesome, right? But when you're making business decisions about how to invest your resources, whether it's your money or your time or your staff or you name it, it's really great to have a fact-based data, actual facts. We're going to kick this thing off. So thank you guys for joining us today. I am Nico Bernie Miller. I'm the CEO of Change3. Change3 is a growth agency, and what we focus on is helping businesses grow happily. We have a special focus on small and mid-sized businesses, but we've been working with corporate technology companies, big, huge brands, some of the biggest technology companies in the world, most recognizable brands, for decades. And I myself have been working with a lot of those companies for decades. And so our job is to help clients develop growth strategies from marketing, sales support, operational excellence, lead generation, nurture, funnel building, you name it, everything you need to grow, even when it comes down to your core technology of how you manage data, build your websites, track conversions, optimize your CRM, you name it. Everything and in between. We literally do it. We have people who specialize in it. And so this year, carrying on the great series that I had last year, we're having a variety of web sessions and live discussions around things to help you grow. So this one today, ways to get the most from your B2B paid media budget, is really a topic that I've been noticing people are talking about. Everybody does social media ads. And so you might be thinking, what's the right amount to spend? Am I getting enough yield? What should I expect? How many touches? Is my ad campaign performing well? And so today we're going to just talk about the top parts of this. And what we're going to talk about is how some really very practical, tactical ways that you can get more from your paid media budget by using techniques to improve your ability to reach your target business professional in lower cost social and media networks. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So the thing is, even though there's lots of places where you can advertise, like, display ads and Google search, and, Facebook is a big one, the hugest social network with half of the people on the planet apparently being on Facebook. I think it's 3.5 or 7 billion profiles on Facebook. So it's like, everybody and their mama is there, and they're really cost effective. And so you're like, hey, I really want to run my ads here. But then you run into the problem of, how do I put my ads only in front of the people that would be interested in my solution? So that's the marketer's challenge. The B2B marketer's challenge is these audiences can be harder to target via paid media, even Google search ads, right? So that makes sense because you can have keywords and things like that, and that kind of gives you a really strong proxy for targeting people firmographically or demographically. But when you get into other environments where you might not be able to use keywords like display ads, or other kind of mobile media ads, things like that, trade desk where you're running display ads in different places on content sites or whatever. Of course, certain sites and certain topics, strongly skew towards business. But when you sell a very specific solution that is really only relevant to a certain group of decision makers, like IT professionals is one that we see a lot, or accountants or lawyers or something, then it starts to get a little bit harder. So if you have a small budget, let's say it's $500 a month, that might seem really impractical that you could use paid social media to reach that audience. But I'm here to tell you, baby, like Prince, I'm here to tell you there's something else, right? And you actually can. Are you going to reach millions? Probably not. You're probably not. But depending on which ad network you put your $500, and depending on how you build that audience, and depending on the type of ad unit you choose, you might get hundreds of thousands of impressions. Maybe you get 10,000, maybe you get 100,000. Last year I did a test and I took $100 and I targeted 100,000 IT professionals, 100,000 IT professionals in government, and 100,000 IT professionals in small businesses. And I ran a campaign on Facebook, I ran one on LinkedIn, I ran one on Reddit, and I ran one on X. And I got hundreds of thousands of impressions for that $100. It varied by network, but there were some tips in what I did and how to get there. So here's one of the things that I would encourage you guys to do. So if you are a B2B marketer and you have a very specific audience and you're trying to get more yield, you love LinkedIn, you do your ads on LinkedIn, they're working great, but you're like, man, I wish I could get more for my money. Well, you can. You can get more for your money if you move over to X. I won't say move. If you place a buy on X, if you place a buy on Facebook, maybe even Instagram, maybe, depending on the kind of ads that you have, the kind of content you have to showcase, you could actually get significantly more impressions and engagement from that same audience on a different network. But the trick is, well, how do you find those people? So number one, you could upload your marketing data. So if you've got a database, maybe you've got an email database of customers, prospects, you name it, and you want to stay in front of those contacts using digital ads and social media. Be mindful about what it is, of course. But let's say you want to stay in front of them. Well, you can upload your list and it'll match. You'll get a match rate. Match rates vary. Some networks like LinkedIn, of course, really high match in most cases. Facebook, less so. I think in Facebook we match maybe 37%. So that's not awesome. But if you've got a really targeted audience and, you've got a very small budget, then, what little you match or what portion that you match is still enough for you to really get some good ad placement and drive some needles, right? Move the needle. You can improve your match rate by having other data like a mobile phone number, for example, or a phone number in there. You can improve your match rate by having alternative email addresses. I think there are some IDs, I think there are different ID parameters that you can gather about people. So the different parameters that you can use to improve your match rate. Some places you can use their handle or their profile link or whatever. Each network is different. And so it's really a matter of going in and digging into it, figuring out which network you want to be in. And it's really about where you want to see your brand and going in and cracking open the specifics in that ad network. Okay, so that's list match. Number two, retargeting is probably the easiest of these four things that I'm going to talk about today. So what is retargeting? If you didn't know, because you guys probably do know, but let's just do it for those who might not. So it's when you add a tracking pixel. It's a little bit of code that you put onto your website or websites. You can use their retargeting pixel on more than one site. And basically anybody who goes to your website or that, website where you've got that tracking information, If they're on that ad network, or yeah, like Facebook or LinkedIn or you name it, then Facebook will see that they're there, and then they'll put them into an audience for you, and that becomes your retargeting audience. So then you can run ads on Facebook for your people in your retargeting audience. And that's actually really, really straightforward. Now, some businesses that are really small, you have very, very low website traffic, 100 visits a month, 200 visits a month. Well, in that case, it's going to be real difficult. You might not get a lot of ad movement in that case because the audience is just going to be too small. But if you are in a business and you have really great success with other tactics, like maybe you're doing email marketing, maybe you're doing postal, maybe you have a shop and people are coming by and you've got some flow, or you've got things that are, driving traffic to your store that can turn into traffic to your website and vice versa. And you've got some pretty solid volume, well, then a retargeting approach could be great for you. You can have a retargeting or tracking pixel from all of your ad networks onto your website. And what I would encourage all of you to do, even if you got kind of low traffic, get that ad account set up, get that tracking pixel added to your website, and start building that retargeting audience. Because for the most part, you can build it over a year. And the networks usually allow you to have some of them up to a year, some of them it's 180 days. Like I said, get in there, get set up, and go get your, one overalls on and get in there and start monkeying around with wrenches and stuff. Or you can set up a time with me. I'd be happy to walk you through it. But retargeting audience is great. And this is one of those things like having a lawyer, right? It's better to have it before you have a problem. So like I said, go, if you don't have ad accounts now and you're like, I'm not sure if I want to advertise. Well, still, it's free to create the ad account. Go create an ad account, get that retracking pixel, put it onto your website and start building your audience. And then you can start to play around with that. So, that's a one little tip for mama. Number three, how else can you reach that business to business audience on these kind of ad networks where it's a little bit harder to target specific people? Well, sometimes they've got some unique elements. The one that I want to talk about today is X. Now, there's also like Reddit, that where you might be able to do this. But some of these ad networks have where you can actually target the followers of a specific profile, and by doing that, that helps you to find your unique audience. Are they developers? Are they, like I said, IT professionals? Are they, you know, um, lawyers? Are they black lawyers? You name it, right? Because there's lots of different unique profiles and, handles, so to speak, that have a very focused following. And so you can target those specific people. And so that could be some interesting ways that you could target your unique audience. It just takes a little bit of research. So if you are yourself as a business leader are on, one of these platforms, you really like it and you use it a lot and you follow certain brands and you think that that brand might have your future customer as followers, well then there you go. That's a place where you can be advertising, and a lot of these networks allow you to target in that way. And that's another easy one. It's not perfect. So remember, we're talking about a proxy, finding a replacement for the ability to say, I want businesses of this size and these industries and this type of person for the job function. Because you can do all that on LinkedIn, but you can't do that for the most part anywhere else, at least not reliably. So if you're looking, well, how do I find that somewhere else? And But at a lower cost. Well, here's some ways to do it. You upload your list, so then you don't have to worry about, figuring that stuff out. You just tell the network who you want to target. Now that's, you're going to get less. If you don't have a really huge list, you're only going to match a portion of them. So that's the drawback of that approach. Number two is you can create a retargeting audience for people who come to your website. But hey, sometimes your future customer hasn't come to your website yet, so that might not work for you if you're not driving a lot of traffic to your website already. So here's another way. And all these tactics work good together too. You could do them all together to really get the biggest bang for your buck. And then some of these networks, like I said, like X and Reddit, and each network has its own way where you can target people based on, who they follow or interests. Well, then there's ways to do that. Now then you're not certain that all those followers are going to be your right customer, but you'll start to choose handles or what have you, that where it's a good chance, right? Good chance. And then the fourth way is probably the best way, but it's as always the most expensive, right? Which is to use an ID graph, like demand base, 6sense, Marketing OS from Zoom Info. There are others, not a lot, but these are like third party audience platforms where you can build an audience in that platform and then it'll connect to an ad network like a Facebook or Trade Desk or something like that. And so that's becoming the thing. It's hard to do because it's expensive. But here are four tactical ways that can really help you get more out of your B2B budget. And let's say that budget was $500. You could definitely upload a list and, use that $500 to run ads. And they could be great ads, right? It could be sponsored posts. It could be intelligence. It could be downloads, whatever you need, right? Where you have a great message for that portion of your uploaded list audience. You can retarget people who came to your website, and that's definitely something, we all could do more of that, right? Because hey, these people expressed interest, they visited my website. Now I can get really slick with what they see next, and some folks are great at it, and the rest of us can always get better, right? So retargeting, and then obviously some of these unique tips. So let's get into it. So you might be like, okay, Nico, yeah, okay, great, I heard your four ideas, and okay, they sound interesting, but why am I going to bother to do this? So I just pulled together some data. So if you spread your spend across multiple networks, it can start to get small, especially when you think about that for smaller businesses, their average total monthly spend is maybe $100 to $10,000. So that would be because even a small business might spend a bunch of money depending on their type of business and how they're driving demand. And where do we get these numbers from? Well, according to some latest research, it says that companies selling to businesses, they spend maybe 2 to 5% of their revenue on marketing. That doesn't sound like a ton, right? Now I didn't compare that to what companies who sell to consumers are, but I would wager that it's less. I would wager that it's less. That the percent of marketing spend for a B2B organization is probably on average less than for a B2C organization. And that's because you spend more money on sales when you are selling to businesses, right? They typically have what they call professional sales team or an outside sales team where you have dedicated salespeople, and that's what they do. They're in the sales function, and you invest in these really skilled senior salespeople that can have that consultative sell. So in B2B organizations, they spend money on selling and less on marketing, whereas in a B2C organization, they spend way more money on marketing and the rest of that money on an e-commerce or an automated selling engine so consumers can convert on their own. They don't need a salesperson in a lot of cases, right? So if it's 2 to 5%, that's small, right? And so that's why these budgets might be small per month. And so you might be like, well, what am I going to do with $100 or $500 or $1,000 a month? Especially if you're trying to say to me, hey, I should be on LinkedIn and I should be on Facebook and I should be on X and all these different places. That's like, $50 on each network or $100 on each network. It's not a lot. But what I'm telling you is that not a lot could still drive, 500, 600, 1,000, 10,000 visits to your website. And it's really about building a representative audience of your target segment and being as creative and resourceful as possible, and then integrating that with all your other marketing tactics, like uploading your email list so you can get a match for those people because they're getting emails from you, so they're going to be more likely to engage with your ads, and vice versa. They saw your ads, so they're going to be more likely to open your email. So it all works together. And here's the thing of you might be like, well, why do I need to bother? What I'm doing is working, which is great. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the thing is times are changing, and we're in what some researchers and maybe 10 years from now, historians will look back and they'll say that 2025 was a pivotal year. A lot of things are happening this year in terms of technology and, whether it's the real commercialization of AI where everybody's, able to use it now, Microsoft Copilot, Gemini from Google, ChatGPT, you name it, right? It's much more broadly available. The adoption of social networks is like pervasive. A lot of historians might look back and be like, times are changing, and as a result, we as marketers it's always going to help us to have our thumbs on the market, right? Our thumbs on the pulse of the market, so we can sense how those times are changing. And one of those things is, again, back to data driven decisions, some research. Folks are saying that it could take as many as 50 touches. I think they gave a range. It was 20 to 50 touches to drive a B2B sale if you're starting from a cold prospect. So that's someone who doesn't know you, right? So they discover your brand and they get to know you, you progress them, and then they eventually become your customer. It could take a ton of touches, and that makes sense, right? It's not like you're selling lip gloss, where you see it and you go, oh, it's $4. I'm gonna get that, right? Maybe you're selling really expensive IT equipment or very expensive consulting services, or you name it. People need time to get to know you and build a trust relationship. I saw a great blog from LinkedIn about that sort of trust economy of how you build trust, and video plays a role in that, and that kind of trust as a parameter of your measurement of success and your marketing strategy, building and developing trust. And that's all about content and influence and rankings and testimonials and a lot of different things. But either way, the point that I'm trying to make for today's discussion, because we can talk about the trust matrix on a different day, but today we're talking about getting the most out of your B2B paid media budget, and you need to touch these people a lot. So the best would be to touch them in a lot of different ways, right? You send them an email, drop them into your retargeting audience. They see a few of your ads, which don't cost you very much. Maybe you have if you're in a certain kind of business, and you can have a short video, 6 seconds, 15 seconds, you do some YouTube ads, and they cost pennies on the dollar. And so, you're using Facebook's ad network, or LinkedIn's audience network, and, you might be having those ads run in mobile apps. And I think we've all experienced that, right? You visit a website, and the next thing you know, in all your mobile apps, your news apps, everything, you see, ads from this company. You see display ads on websites you visit. You see ads in the applications that you're using, and that's normal. That's retargeting, right? And it's actually part of it. And you might be like, "Oh my gosh, I hate that." But the thing is you do take note of it, right? And if the ads are good, you hate it when you don't like the ads. But if the ads are good, they're relevant, they offer something useful for you, then you notice, hey, yeah, I'll do that download. Oh, yeah, I'll check out that case study. Oh my gosh, that statistic does matter. So that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make to y'all is, why bother figuring out what to do with that $500? Well, it's because you do need to be in front of your future customer many times before they're ready to buy from you. And the best way to do that is to be in many places, not just in one or two places, but try to be in 3 or 4 or 5, so that you can really surround that customer. And then all the times they're engaging with digital media, which is a lot, then you can be in front of them. That's really what it boils down to. So with this in mind, you can use your limited dollars to craft thoughtful campaigns, like I said, to surround your audience, and that will drive more results for less money. And I'm talking about low money, right? $100, $500. And I know this because I do this myself, right? I speak from experience. I do it for my own internal brands. I do it for my client brands. For a few $100, you really can drive a lot of impressions and a lot of clicks. So what you probably want to hear me say is, oh, you can drive a lot of results. Well, those results really are a function of what you drive those people to. You can create great ad campaigns, and that they can get a lot of engagement. They'll get likes and comments and traffic, and you name it. You can create great ad campaigns to do that. But when they get to the destination, which might be your website, if that's not great, well, then you might not get the conversion. So the whole thing has to work together and create a great experience, and it has to be thoughtfully done, thoughtfully planned out, stitched together, and evaluated, so that when people meet you on digital media with that first ad, and they start to get to know you because they start seeing more of your ads, and those ads are diverse and they're interesting and they're relevant, and then they go to really get to know you by going to your website, and they learn something more there. Well, now you're on your way, right? And you give them ways to engage with you. Maybe you have a cool AI chatbot or something. and then you start building that relationship. It could take fewer touches, right, as you get to know prospects. And it could take probably no touches if these are your customers. So back to my point of, in some cases, you might even want to advertise to your customers to keep yourself top of mind. There's loads of ways to use your limited paid media dollars to reach your business customers. It just takes a little bit of tricks. So let's talk through the tricks. And then that and then of course, if you want, a deep dive into this, or you want me to help you, hit me up. You can reach me at ideas@change3e.com, or you can go to the chat on my website. You can instant message on any of my socials. I don't promise to respond really quickly on the more personal social media, but like LinkedIn, of course, I'll respond to you quickly. Or you can engage with my team. There's phone number, all that kind of stuff on the website, and they'll get you connected and schedule with me, and schedule the time. And I'll be happy to walk you through it. I would love to. So, how do you right size your budget? So, 4 steps, 4 things to do. So let's talk them through. So with matched audiences, it's actually very easy, or very, I won't say easy. I don't like to use that word anymore, you guys. Do you? How much are you guys using the word easy? I like to say straightforward. Very straightforward. You got an email database, maybe they're your prospects, maybe they're your customers, and you want them to do something new. Maybe you want them to upgrade, attend an event, you name it. This could be warm prospects. Maybe you've got a marketing database of people you don't know, but it's really well targeted. Might be a little bit old. Maybe it's getting aging. That's all fine. Wherever you want to advertise, I wouldn't, yes, of course, you can upload your list into LinkedIn, and you can definitely do that for sure. And you have a really great match rate. It's just that this whole conversation is about how can you maybe get a little bit more out of your budget. So uploading your list in LinkedIn is not going to really help you get the most out of your budget, because LinkedIn's already got really great targeting where you can target people by size and firmographic and title and all that sort of stuff. So I won't say why bother, because of course you might want to target those specific people. So of course it's worth your time. But if you're trying to get more from your budget, what the real magic is to take that list of targeted business professionals that you're trying to reach and load it into X or Facebook or YouTube, or wherever you think is an appropriate non-business focused network where you believe those people will be and you can reach them. X is a really good one for IT professionals. Facebook is really good for broader business people, especially smaller businesses, and different role types in smaller businesses, especially if they're a little bit older. Instagram is great if you're targeting younger professionals, both male and female. TikTok as well is very similar as an Instagram, and YouTube is pretty broad across the board. Lots of people, but you have to have a certain type of an ad. Media has to be video, obviously. So, each network has its pluses and minuses. So you pick and choose of what best fits you. That's really what it's about. It's not that one is better than the other. It's that there's some that are a better fit for your goals and what you have to offer, or the kind of assets you have, the kind of ads you want to run. It's choosing that perfect place for you. And once you've chosen that non-business focused network that's a perfect fit for you, then List Match is a great way for you to reach your specific target audience on that network for pennies on the dollar of what it would cost you to reach those same people in a business focused network, in this different environment. Now, you won't be able to match as many of them or what have you, but the ones that you can match, why not reach them for 12 cents each or 20 cents each, or whatever it works out to be, really low cost per click, low cost per impression. That's really a win. And how much effort does it take? It takes a little bit of effort. Each network has a what's called a data format or data template. What that's going to be, and you can download it when you create your ad account and you go into the audiences area. In most cases, the portion of the ad account will have a section around audiences, and so that's where you would go, and it would where you could build your audience, and you can use targeting to do that. You can upload a list, and so they'll walk you through how to do that. And in general, this is where you can download an example of the audience that they're, of that database, excuse me, This is where you can download, hi, this is where you can download an example of the spreadsheet that you might use to upload your contacts. It's going to be in a certain format. They're going to be column headers, and they'll have things like, maybe their first and last name, maybe an email address, maybe a handle, like their YouTube ID or their, X handle or whatever, have those sorts of things. And then you can upload that so they can find those people. And so that's where it might take some time, is to put your data into the format that you can use it with that social network. And so that's where, you might hire a person, like you might hire somebody like me, on my team. You might hire a little virtual assistant that might do something like that for you. Lots of ways to get your data in the right format, and then you upload it. So that's a really good approach, and it'll definitely save you money to reach the same amount of people or the same type of people, because the cost per click is going to be a lot lower than in the networks that you might be advertising or your usual tactics. So you'll get a lot more for less if you go through that effort. So it's your time. So what's the next thing? We're talking about retargeting. So that's the next thing on the list. Retargeting. And as I mentioned, you can put as many ad tracking pixels on your website as you want. Keep in mind that, even though they say it really won't slow them down, and they generally don't, but you just have to keep in mind. So you don't want to put like 500 of them. Always pay attention to what you are putting on your website. Don't take it lightly. Make sure you understand what the company's doing. Do they have privacy measures, all that sort of stuff. Make sure all that's in your privacy policy. There's some technical things to take into consideration, but once you got all those baseline things set up, then go wow, right? And put your pixels in place and do all your stuff, which is great. Retargeting audiences are awesome. And you can do a lot with, those retargeting audience in terms of the ads that you serve and all that kind of stuff. And there's some of these networks, you've got a lot of capability in terms of who sees the ad and what they need to do and how much time they spent on here or there. Lots of options for you. But because we're talking about small budgets, that means we've probably got small retargeting audiences. And so I always like to say, keep it as simple as feasible, right, as possible. And the only thing with retargeting is that it is a function of your web traffic. So if you don't have another tactic to drive web traffic, then a retargeting campaign isn't going to be the silver bullet for you, because it is a function of who's come to your website to visit. And there's other pixels that can track, if you have a mobile game or a mobile app or something like that, are they playing, then you can retarget those people. But for most of us, what we have is a website. And so you need to do something to drive traffic to your website. So that might be that uploading your list or targeting, unique handles like we talked about. That's tactics 1 and 3. And retargeting, which is in the middle of that, as number 2, that's a function of when people do convert and they saw your ad, your interest ad, or they got your email and they went to your website. Well, now you can start to serve up digital ads to them using your retargeting pixel. And you can do that also for pennies on the dollar, and it's really cost effective. So it's a combination. It's generally not going to be one or the other. If you're getting really good success from your emails and, maybe you're doing postal or other things, you got a fair amount of website traffic, 1,000 to 2,000 people a month, maybe 500, then you can start to build up a nice little retargeting pool, 5,000, 6,000 people after a few months. Now, truthfully speaking, these social networks really want it, more is more for them, right? So some of them will say, they want you to have 100,000 people in your audience. Now, Facebook says you just need 1,000. You just need 1,000 people in your retargeting pool or your audience, and then they'll serve up ads, and they will. But what you'll find is if your audience is that small, 1,000 people, then it might take a long time before they really serve up very many ads, because those 1,000 people might not be on, say, Facebook or wherever it is you're serving up ads to them that often. Now, the good news for us is people are using digital media a lot these days. So it's possible that those 1,000 people are all available. They'll be on Facebook, they'll be on mobile apps, they'll be on different websites, content websites. And so there'll be places where they can see your ad. And so you'd have a good chance of getting some activity. But honestly speaking, an audience of 1,000 is really small. And so you can serve ads to them and you can launch a campaign on some of these networks, like Facebook being one. But it might take a while before you really cycle through and see any movement from that audience. So it's a function of, well, is that audience really high value for you? And is it, you don't mind, right? You want those 1,000 people to see your ad, and that might be fine. Okay, so we talked about list upload, what you need to do there. It helps to have a data analyst to help you get that list in the right format, and then it's really easy to upload it. Retargeting is a function of how much traffic is coming to your website. And then if you can really be thoughtful about, how you create those ads to follow up with people once they've gotten to your website, that's a really great number two or 1B kind of a tactic. You do something, your number one tactic drives a lot of traffic, and then 1B really goes in there and, like, they call it, conversion. That's your conversion funnel. It progresses your traffic, to take them down your journey to get to know you. Like I said, we're building relationships, so they start to get to know you and get ready to do business with you. And then the last tactic that I'll talk about, and then I'll see if anybody has any questions or any comments, is obviously an ID graph, right? So an ID graph, what is that? So like I said, we use Marketing OS from Zoom Info. We've done a webinar for that. We had a few hundred people join us. It was the beginning of this year. It was great discussion. Watch the replay, honey. But a platform like that is really great. It's very expensive, and I'm not even going to tell you how much because that's my business. But but of course, you can go talk to them and find out. But it's extremely expensive, right? So the average marketer who's spending $500 a month will definitely not be able to afford that. It is dramatically more. It's phenomenally more than that per month. So, but you could work with an agency partner that has access to a tool like that, like us. There are others that could help build those audiences for you, and for a fee, or and their third party platforms and stuff like that. But there's a fee involved, so it costs some money, and so that's the downside there, I guess. Or I won't say the con, but that's the other facet of that, is that, yes, that's probably the best. You can use that to build a big audience. If you target people, you don't have to worry about if they've been to your website or not. And then you can use that audience with a really low cost platform like Facebook or something like that and really get a huge yield. But you do have to work with a party that has that, and you probably have to pay them a fee or run your ads through them or do other services with them or what have you. So if you have other needs that you might be able to get from that company, doing your signage or doing lead generation or what have you, then that's a great option for you. If you don't, then that option might as well not exist for you. So that's it today. So 4 things: list upload, retargeting, creative targeting using handles and things like that, which is especially for X and Reddit. You can do interest-based targeting on Facebook, but is less juicy. And then obviously the last one is using an ID graph. So those are my 4 tips and tricks from Mama Nico on how to get the most out of targeting your very specific business-to-business audience on non-business channels like Facebook, X, TikTok, and Reddit. So there we go. Does anybody have any questions before we wrap up today's discussion? I'll give you a couple more minutes. And then, of course, as I wrap up, absolutely, if you want me to walk you through this personally, and you have some questions, because as you guys heard, I rattled off all this type of stuff, and went through a bunch of different things. You might be like, oh my gosh, there's so many things. The right paid media strategy is as unique as you are, and you can't get it wrong. I'm sure there are people out there that would disagree with me, and that's fine. There's some people out there that will tell you have to do it a certain way. I'm not one of those people. I think that your paid media strategy is a reflection of your brand and your values and your preferences and your knowledge of your market. And you can't get that wrong. You can't be you wrong. And that's all good. And that's what I would say. And if you want to figure out what's that right B2B paid media strategy for your business and your budget, whatever it is, I'll be delighted to help you. No cost. You can free consultation, just go to our website and set up a time, and me and you can spend some time and walk through who's your target, what are you doing, what are your goals, what are you trying to change, from where you've been to where you want to go, and then we'll figure out what's the right combination that's just right for you. Is it those four things? There's other things you can do, people, so those aren't the only things, but those are the four things that are really straightforward, easiest to do, and often very effective. So, but yeah, give me a call. Like I said, I'll drop it again, change3e.com. So you can visit there to access us. We've got replays. Like I mentioned, we had a big event where we did this test. You also could, you might not want to watch well, of course you want to watch the webinar because I'm fabulous. No, no, I'm not. But you do want to watch the webinar because we were joined by the folks from Zoom Info, and from one of our clients from LRS IT Solutions. It was so great. It was such a good discussion. But we also did a test. And so in our little accompanying PowerPoint, which you can access when you watch the replay, you'll be able to download those slides. It shows the results of the test. So you see what we got for $100. $100 on LinkedIn, $100 on Facebook, $100 on X, and $100 on Reddit. So you can actually see that. If you don't feel like, logging in to, access it that way, just hit the chat and a member of my team will get your information and we can send it to you on email, or better yet, baby, call me, set up some time, and I'll walk you through it, and it'll be great. So guys, thank you so much for joining me today. If you don't have any questions, or you want to save your questions for when we meet personally, I really appreciate your time. Everybody on LinkedIn, thank you so much for joining us today. We all hope that you work together, take this hot summer to figure out ways to rest, relax, recover, and restore so we all can grow happily together. Thank you much for joining me. I'll see you guys next month. We've got a couple of so in August, we've got one session in August. At the end of August around wellness. So yay! So August is going to be about wellness. We're going to be joined by the head of marketing for one of our newest clients, Optimal Health Systems, a really amazing whole food supplement company. And we're doing a session with, like I said, their head of marketing, Becky Stroudling. And we're going to talk about creating a healthy workplace, why having healthy habits for ourselves as business leaders and creating those healthy habits for our work environment and with our staff and our team is going to actually help us have better business results. There's some really interesting statistics on that event, and I'm not going to steal the thunder because I want you to go to the website, but I'll say this. What we find, and there's a lot of research about this, is that unhealthy employees don't work as much, they don't work as hard, they're not as creative, they don't get as many results, and they're not as effective because, they are suffering. Their energy is being spent on things that aren't about driving success. And health is not just your body, and it's also not just what you look like. Your health is in your spirit, in your mind, in your heart, and in your whole aura and your energy. So I hope that you guys will do something for a healthy 2025. If you haven't already done it, and join me and Becky in August. I think it's August 21st. And we're going to talk about creating a healthy work environment. We're always doing research. So Sandy put in the chat a link to our sales and marketing tech survey. I think we're close to 100 small business participants have already taken that survey. We invite all of you guys to take it as well. When you take our surveys and you submit your responses, I think there's 7 or 8 questions. It actually takes you to the real-time results. So back to data-driven decisions, right? So when you complete the survey, it's going to actually take you to a page and show you all the data. I think it doesn't show you all the data. It shows you most of the data in some really great graphs, and shows you how much data has been completed. And so it's a great way for you guys to get some fresh peer-led research on how companies are marketing their business, what kind of sales and marketing tech, including their websites and social media and that sort of stuff, are they using. We're also going to be launching a wellness at work. I think it's Work Well survey to really look at wellness, mental health, physical health, how companies are addressing that and what things we can do. One thing, sometimes you just change one thing, it can make all the difference. And so we're going to be launching that survey. So all of you check your inboxes, and you might even see one of our social ads, because we'd love for all of you to tell us what your ways are to work well. And if you're having any challenges with working well, then you can check out the results of the survey, get that real-time result, and see what other people are doing to have better well-being and more effective, healthy interactions at work. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye.